Hey everybody, welcome to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. My name is Steve Weinberger. I'm the CEO of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation. I'm here with Brandon Robertson. We're ready to deliver another Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Session topic. Brandon's topic today is breathe, relax, focus, simple practice tools during a performance. We are recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach. We appreciate participants remaining muted for the courtesy of the session, but if there are questions, we will get those questions to Brandon. You can use the chat feature or the raise your hand feature. If you're enjoying these sessions and have feedback, please email them to info@clearwaterjazz.com, or if you have a suggested topic you'd like us to cover, we would appreciate your feedback and would love to hear from you. You can view all these upcoming sessions at clearwaterjazz.com/education on the education and outreach page, where you will see the Zoom information to join each session. And all of these sessions are archived in video form in the studio, which link is accessible from the education and outreach page. We also have launched a Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast, which captures all of the audio sessions from these that are available on multiple platforms, including Apple and Spotify, Anchor, and others. So check it out. And let me tell you a little bit about Brandon. If you are new to Brandon and have not seen him in his other great sessions that he has done for us, Brandon is an Emmy-nominated music director, professional upright electric bassist, composer, and music educator, originally from Tampa, Florida. He completed his Bachelor of Arts in Music from Florida State University and a Master of Music and Jazz Studies from Florida State University as well. Currently, Brandon is the Director of Jazz Studies and Director of the FGCU Basketball Band at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida. He is now an honorary member of the Kappa Kappa Psi Mu Upsilon chapter at Florida Gulf Coast University. In 2018, he was nominated for an Emmy Award for Best Documentary for Educational Collegiate Programs featuring the FGCU Jazz Ensemble. As a prominent band leader, Brandon has taken his band on multiple national tours, headlining at some of the top jazz venues in the country. To add to this impressive resume, Brandon has performed with notable acts such as the world-famous Count Basie Orchestra led by director Scotty Barnhart, vocalist Carmen Bradford, Jason Marsalis, Marcus Roberts, Marty Morell, and many more. We are so fortunate to have Brandon with us on the Young Lions team. He's been featured as a performer and band leader at various national jazz festivals, including his headline debut at the Jacksonville Jazz Festival, Tampa Bay Jazz Festival, and others. Brandon, thank you so much for continuing to be such a valuable resource for this program. I'm going to turn the stage over to you, my friend. Take it away.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody from the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation. You guys are wonderful, as always. I always appreciate everything that you do for this community, and just to be a part of this platform again is great. It's a great thing that we're doing right now, and people who are going to watch this in the near future, you know, I hope they get something out of this. So so let's jump right into it. Can everyone can hear me? Make sure everyone can hear me. Good, cool.
Yeah, you're all good. You're all good, Brandon.
Great. Okay, so this topic is one that I adopted and I've held on to since the first time it was introduced to me my freshman year in college. It's by my wonderful bass teacher, former bass teacher, Miss Melanie Punter. And she used to always say this term, bruff, in her lessons. And I couldn't understand what she meant by that, because she would never explain to me what it meant. She would just say, you just need the bruff. And she would just smile and make me play the passage over again. And it wasn't until my junior year where she finally explained to me what that meant. And she said, you just need to breathe, relax, and focus. And I said, well, why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning? She said, because you needed to understand how to do it. And through practice and through discipline, you start to understand these different elements about yourself that will train you to know how to perform, because she has performed in various orchestras, various performances that, you know, across the country, people would love to get those opportunities. And yet she always does it with grace and elegance and poise. And that's what she tried to instill in me when she was teaching me classical bass. On the flip side of that, studying jazz, I can be more expressive and a lot more freedom. And when you're playing consistent quarter notes, which in this case I'm doing bass lines, those quarter notes begin to build tension. And over time, you're doing this over and over and over and over and over. And now you come to terms to say, wow, that term bruff actually starts to make sense, because when you're in different situations, you need to breathe, you need to relax, and just focus on what you have to do. So that's the whole principle of today's topic, is breathe, relax, and focus. Just small little key elements that can help you in situations when you're either nervous, when you're about to start to perform, and or when you're preparing for a performance that's, you know, bigger than what you've experienced in the past. So we're going to start with the first part. First part, breathe. We all have to breathe, right? Everybody has to breathe. We can't not breathe, because if we don't, you know, our heart will stop. So breathing is very important while you're performing, especially when you're a rhythm section player, such as myself. I'm a bass player, so I have to breathe while I'm playing, because my particular instrument and my role in the band is consistent from start to finish. So the first thing is you have to make sure that you are hydrated. This is a bottle of water. Usually you'll see musicians have a bottle of water next to their stands. Horn players will keep it right next to the stool. Rhythm section players will keep it on the floor, etc. We always keep a bottle of water next to us. Now, if you think about why do we keep water next to us, because we need to stay hydrated. We're burning a lot of calories while we're performing. And it's very important that when you're breathing, you need to have oxygen and you need to have H2O flowing through your body consistently. So it's very important before any performance, you need to hydrate yourself. I always strive to get up to at least a half a gallon before I have to perform. I don't drink it all in one serving, but I try to build up to that. So that way I am fully hydrated, that when I begin, especially if it's a piece that I know is slightly medium, maybe on the cusp of being slightly fast tempo, then I can feel the stamina to have the endurance to keep up. Otherwise, if I'm dehydrated, two things will happen. And it's not just for bass players, it's for most musicians. If you're consistently moving, drummers, pianists, whoever. The first thing is you're going to get cramps wherever you're moving the most. So if you're a horn, it's usually somewhere in your hand and your fingers, because this is going a lot, right? Or for me, somewhere in my arm or my wrist, because that's where most of my tension is, especially for drummers, pianists, here in the wrist. So we have certain areas where we feel this, right? Number two, your stamina starts to decline and you start to slow down. And it's very obvious when there was a certain tempo that was set before and it drops. This is all part of this breathing, because if you're not breathing and you're dehydrated, your body is going to give out, right? So it's very important that you are fully hydrated. That's number one, okay? So we get through that. Number two, I like to always take very deep breaths before I begin to play. I don't do it all the time, but most of about 80%, and that's being very truthful. 80% of the time, you'll see me in the corner. And I'll do about 3 big breaths. I teach my kids this. I tell my daughter this all the time. Whenever she feels like she's going to get angry, I say, baby, take 3 big breaths. And when you take 3 big breaths, everything that you're feeling is consumed. And once it's released, you feel kind of this lightness about you, right? That feeling is a great feeling to have before you're going to play, because now there's nothing that was weighing you down. Because when you have emotions weighing you down, there's a lot that you can't release when you're not breathing, right? So making sure you're taking deep breaths before you begin to play, especially if you're a rhythm section player like myself. If you're a rhythm section player and you're going to begin playing something where now for about 10 minutes, it's going to stay one tempo, and then it's just going to go up about 3 clicks in an instant, right? So you want to make sure that your body is loose. And when you take those 3 big breaths, everything is loose. Now you're comfortable. You want to feel comfortable. And now you're relaxed, okay? So that's number 2. So make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you take those deep breaths. Clear your thoughts. When you breathe, you're not thinking about anything. You're just thinking about the air that you're inhaling and you're exhaling. Clear your thoughts. Clear anything that's distracting you, anything that you was thinking about before. Don't think about it. Clear everything. Once you clear everything, now you can begin to focus and feel what's going on around you, okay? And your breathing helps you circulate that. It helps you kind of entrance and get attuned to what's going on in your environment, okay? Which then leads me to my last point: preparation for what's to come ahead. So now, once you've gone through this process, you go out on stage. Now you know what's coming. You know what to prepare for. You have an understanding of, okay, I just walked out into this situation. This is how it's going to go down. All right. Now, these 4 little keys tools here are very important that you can use. You can break it down and you can dissect it however you want later on in different scenarios. But those 4 little elements will help. They've all helped me in various situations. There was times where I knew I was going to be outside playing at a festival. I made sure I hydrated myself because I was going to be outside in the heat. And we live in Florida. It's hot. So I make sure that I'm hydrated, right? But then I've been in situations where when I got a chance to play with the Count Basie Orchestra, that was a nerve-wracking performance for me. That was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. I had to take some very deep breaths and say, okay, this is going on right now, right? And I've been in situations where I had to just my master's recital. It was the point of accomplishment, just releasing, just going. When you go through experience in life, you take these principles and you just figure things out. But breathing is very important for all musicians. We all have to breathe. We all have to make sure that we're breathing, just for the sake of pumping air and through blood oxygen so our blood can flow. But then 2, it just comes to relax us and puts us in a different state. Okay, so that's the key. That's the first element of breathe. Now we get to the second component. Relax. as a young musician, you've probably heard that term a lot. Come on, you need to relax. Don't play so harsh. I need to play so loud. Relax. You're okay. Take it easy. We've all been there. I've been there, right? But there's some wisdom behind that. There's truth behind that. And one of the key points, number one, is you need to enjoy the moment. When you get a chance to do a performance that you've been striving for, let's say if you was a young musician who wanted to play with one of your favorite local musicians, and somehow they got your information and they called you for a gig, and you knew you admire this person, you're like, wow, this person actually called me for a gig. Enjoy that moment. Don't prep yourself up to set yourself up for failure by thinking, man, I don't think I can do this because I'm way out of that element. They wouldn't have called you if they didn't feel that you was ready, or that they didn't think they wanted to take a chance to at least show you or see what you have. So enjoy the moment. You got to relax. I remember the first time I met George Clinton in Tallahassee, and he told me that. He said, young man, you got to relax. You got to relax. You're too stiff. You got to relax. I was trying to play some cool bass lines for him. He's like, you got to relax. It was funny because, I'm looking at him like, you know who you are telling me that I need to relax. No, that's not comforting. But it was, what he was trying to say is relax. It's just music. Music is music. Music isn't meant for you to feel with tense. You need to relax. Enjoy the moment. This is what you were made to do. So point number one is enjoy the moment. When you get the opportunity to do something extraordinary, enjoy the moment, okay? Point number two, you're already there. And what I mean by that is when we get the chance to be in the presence amongst people who we admire and we see as somebody we look up to and we want to inspire to be like in a creative standpoint, it's if you're already are surrounded by folks like that, you're already there. There's nothing else that you need to do other than sit back, relax, take out a notepad and take some notes. And when I'm not saying figuratively speaking, when you got to write down anything, if you would like to, go ahead. But in terms of in soaking up all the moments, soaking up all the knowledge, the stories, just different gig situations or how they handle this situation, things like that. That's all lessons. That's all things that you learn. And when you get to a point when you get to be around people like that, it teaches you how to relax because you realize these folks are just human beings. They're regular people. They're just sharing their experiences. These experiences have helped them. Some of these experiences have gotten them out of situations, and maybe it didn't help them, but they learned from it. And you take that information and you learn how to make the right or wrong. You make not right or wrong choice, but you make the right choice. And so if you're already there, there's nothing else that you need to do. So you're enjoy that moment. You're in the presence. Be cool. Which takes me to my third point. I remember the first time I got to go overseas and I was on a cruise ship and I stepped off the boat and we were in Lisbon, Portugal. And I'm looking around, I'm like, wow. And all I kept thinking was, I'm just this kid from Florida looking at this. And I was 20, just turned 23. It was crazy. And I remember looking at and observing my surroundings and saying, wow, this is why I want to do this for a living. So it helped me to want to be a better performer so I can stay in these kind of elements and I can stay in these type of situations. It's a hunger. It's a different type of feeling that you really enjoy because it pushes you to really be that musician and that person that you would like to become. So observe your surrounding. You know, when you go to a jam session and you see someone, a more seasoned musician, they get up and they play, you take a listen. Or maybe be brave enough to jump up there and try to play a chorus and let them hear you. And if they hear something that they like, they might share something with you in that moment. And then if they share something with you, if you really want to go for it again, you know. But don't ever pass up a situation. Observe your surroundings. If somebody gives you that opportunity, take it. Take it. Okay? And these are things that can really help you in performance situations, because you never know who's watching you in the audience. You never know. You never know. Okay? Which takes me to my very last point. If you're not nervous, then you're not prepared. If you're not nervous, then you're not prepared. I run a jazz ensemble down at the university that I teach at. And most of my students, the day of the concerts, so it's usually our first concert and our last concert. Every year, it's the same scenario. They come out, we're backstage, I talk to the band, I say, guys, you good? Girls, you good? Yeah, professor, we're good. And then I said, all right, I'm about to walk out there. Wait. So what's the order of the set list again? What are we doing? Somebody will ask me in the band. Usually a third of the band will turn around and they'll go, come on, man, like really don't do that right now. Because they didn't realize that they were talking about how not nervous they were until they got in that moment and it hit them where they knew it was go time. And I've learned that. That's a valuable lesson that most seasoned musicians have always taught me. They've always taught me that if you're not nervous, then you're not prepared, because your nerves are what's the uncertainty. And in music, there's a lot of uncertainty, especially when you're playing live, because you really don't know what's going to happen. You could have practiced all this stuff and then something minor would have happened that would have changed the whole course of the whole performance. And now what the audience might have thought what was going to happen didn't happen, and they're cool with it. But now everybody on stage is like, uh-oh. And that's happened one too many times. Trust me, I've been in too many of those situations. However, that's the fun part. That actually is the fun part. And that's actually the most relaxing part, because then you can just have the freedom to just play with these individuals and figure out together, how are we going to get out of this and back on the track? And 99.9%, we just get back on track. And so those are the things that I feel that if you relax, if you breathe with those few tools, if you relax with those few tools, this will kind of help you gain a better sense of awareness and just fulfillment of what's happening in the performance. And so coming to my last point of view is the focus. Now, this is the one that if you meet any of my students, any student that I teach, any of them, they will tell you how much I stress this word focus. They hate this word. And I don't like use the word hate, but it's funny how they apply it, because they say, Professor, everywhere I go, someone's talking about being focused. And I have to hear from you all the time. But there's a reason, because as a musician, as a professional musician, and I'm going to stress this to you all, please, if you hear this, as a professional musician, you will get many callbacks if you are the most focused one on the gig. If you're tentative, you show up with a pencil, you remember the rehearsal notes that the band leader sent you prior to you showing up to the actual gig. So you are aware of what's going on. I mean, there's multiple things that just key things that you focus on and you're aware of beforehand will save you a whole lot of trouble on the gig, right? So first point, key point number one, center into your own zone. If you ever hear the great musicians, the singers, they always say that when they're on stage, it's black in the audience. It's just dark. And then there's just spotlights, and it's just them on the stage by themselves, and they're singing and they're doing all of these, just these crazy dance moves, but nobody's there. It's just them by themselves. Center into your zone. That's what keeps you grounded. Nothing is distracting you. There's nothing else around you. You just focus in on what it is that you have to do. Okay? Point number 2. You would like to run the entire set list. Excuse me. You would like to run the entire set list through your head before you go on stage. I'm going to say that again. When you show up to the gig, once you get unpacked, once you get settled, make sure you put your music in order and you run through your set list, the entire set list, up and down. If there's any discrepancy about that set list, you ask the question beforehand. Do not do it on stage right before you play, because you would have already broken key point number 1, which was you're not focused in your zone. So that is very important, to run through whatever logistics of the entire 90 minutes, 60 minute, 30 minute, 25 minutes, well, however long that the gig proceeds. You want to make sure that you go through all the logistical parts before any performance. This will save you a lot of trouble, and it would also gain you a lot more gigs down the road. Okay. Point number 3. I said this earlier. The audience will always remember your first and your last note. It's one of my mantras that I live by, something that I've embedded into my band. And my band proceeds to get tighter every year because they understand that if they start strong, they're going to finish strong. Point blank. That's what's going to happen. There's no in between. It's from start to finish. That type of focus is where the professionals are. That's what separates what I tell my students. You have the 1%ers who are naturally born with it and they can just do it. But then you have that 5% people who actually strive and become professional musicians, but then they have to stay at a certain level of focus to obtain that status. So I always stress to them, when the folks are listening to you who don't know you, the first thing they're going to listen for is that first note. That's the first thing they're going to hear. And if you don't convince them from that, it's very hard to make that up later on. You can do so if you finish strong. So just because you start a certain way doesn't mean you can't end it strong, but you always want to strive the first note and that last note. Boom, boom. Okay? So always remember that when you go out on stage and you're about to play, you need to relax and have fun. Have fun. Make sure you have fun, because, like I said, music is supposed to meant to make people feel good, not make them feel like robots. You got to make them feel good and feel like human beings. That's the whole purpose of that live performance, to feel those elements. But you also have a responsibility and a role that you're holding down within the band and while you're on stage. And so having understanding all of these key pointers is very important. Okay. Which brings me to my last point. Stay within the moment. And what I mean by that, this is very important. I learned this now when I moved to Southwest Florida. I started playing with some very seasoned musicians, guys who I felt up until this point I hadn't played with in a very long time, and their musicality is way beyond what I've experienced thus far. and not because of their age, but just because of the multitude of gigs and people that they have played with. And they always tell me at our local gig we do every week, well, before this whole thing happened, they would always say that, they're like, Brandon, can you just stay with what's going on and just play the music, man. Just play the music. You're fine. You're doing fine. Because they would know when I start getting nervous, because I would start playing a certain way that they don't like. And I don't know that I'm doing it because I'm nervous, but they know because they've heard it before. So they figured, oh, he might fix it, but because I never did, they finally said something to me about it. And I respect that, because now they're saying, what they said was, stay in the moment and don't worry about what's happening. If you mess up, whatever, just play the music. Just play. And that was a great, valuable lesson that I learned. And from that point on, I've always just made sure that when I focus in on whatever I'm doing, I'm staying in that moment. I'm going to enjoy what's in that moment. And I'm going to stay right there within that domain until it's all said and done. So overall, just a last rundown, my final thought here. We all know that, like I said earlier at the beginning, that we have to breathe. We just as human beings, we have to breathe. But as musicians, it's important for our breathing. It's for wind players, for brass players, anybody that plays an instrument where you have to blow air through, you have to breathe. So you have to make sure you're hydrated. So make sure you drink plenty of water. Make sure you're taking lots of deep breaths. Clear your thoughts. Make sure there's nothing that's weighing you in before you go into the performance, because you want to give all of your emotion and all of your energy and entity into that performance. Make sure that you understand that the preparation that's coming ahead of you is there. So you want to feel relaxed. You want to be clear-minded. Okay. Enjoy the moment. You're already there. Enjoy the moment. Observe your surroundings and use that to your music game, and learn and love the experience. And if you're not nervous, then you need to make sure that you know what's going on, because your nerves are only just bringing out the uncertainty that can really blossom into something great. And then you want to stay centered and focused into your zone. You want to make sure that you're wrapped into your own domain. You want to make sure that you run through all the logistical entities that is the rundown of the entire show, so that way you're in the same mindset and on the same page with the other musicians in the band. And then always remember that the way you begin is the way you need to finish. So you need to start strong, finish strong, and just stay in the moment. And that's my whole rundown.
Yeah, well, that's a great rundown, man. What another great session, Brandon. Thank you so much. You're gonna be back. You're gonna be back with us, thankfully, and we have a couple dates on Clearwater Jazz's education and outreach page. You can see all these upcoming sessions, and Brandon's going to be back with us on July 15th, and then again on July 20th.
Yes.
And I just wanted to talk a little bit about those topics while we have you, because I think they're going to be really great. On July 15th, you're doing a session that you're calling Think Like a Horn Player, but from a bass perspective. And then on the 20th, you have a topic that you're calling Raising the Bar, and really working on, geared towards preparing for a performance. So I was hoping that you would give us a little insight into what you plan to cover on those sessions.
So the session that's going to be held next Wednesday on the 15th, that particular session, it's always been an interesting topic. When I was in graduate school, I had the opportunity to take the jazz improvisational class at the graduate level, and I was, at the time, my instructor was a trombonist, so Mr. Nick Fenzer, And the way he taught that class was, he said, most of my students in this class are rhythm section players, so why don't we work on all of the songs that most rhythm section players won't play, but you'll at least understand how and why these horn players can navigate through these changes. So I thought that was pretty neat. From that perspective, I never thought of it as a bass player, because I'm outlining most of the parallels that they're playing. However, it's more from a triadic and simplified motion versus all of the intervallic motions that are occurring within the changes. So that's something that I want to bring, that I learned from a bass perspective, how you can imply that and what it sounds like, because it sounds a whole lot different than you would hear on a saxophone.
Well, we're really looking forward to both those sessions for sure. And again, if you visit the outreach page, you'll see not only all the upcoming sessions, but there'll be a link to what we call the studio. And if you click on the studio, we have all of these sessions, the video of them, that are archived by instrument and topic. And in many cases, the guest musician or educator will have some session materials with a link or a recommended playlist that we put up on our Spotify channel. And so there's just a lot of great information with all of these different topics. And please be sure to check out the audio feeds of these sessions too in the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Session podcast, which is available on quite a few platforms already and growing. So we're trying to get all of these sessions up as quickly as possible. And so within the next few weeks, most of them should be up on both platforms. So the other thing I wanted to mention too is this past fall, Brandon released his first debut album, which is titled Based on a True Story, based like BASS''D. And that was in the fall, and it reached all the way up to number 16 on the iTunes Top 200, which is awesome. So please check that out where you can. I know Brandon would appreciate it, and it's great stuff. So Brandon, thank you so much for being a part of this, and we're really looking forward to seeing you the next time.
Yeah, I wanted to, if I can leave with one more final thought. I left this out about the session that's on the 20th. The Raise the Bar one, I would like to also, invite that to mostly all musicians, but also educators as well, because, I've learned too for myself that I've needed to raise the bar in what I challenge my students on, just in terms of, especially with the times that we're dealing with currently, and with just suggestions and just feedback and hearing from other folks that are in the same situation. I think it'll be vital for me to share some of that information. It was very good, useful tools and things that I never thought of. So I just wanted to expand on that to the audience as well.
That's great, Brandon. Thank you so much. So on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation and Brandon Robertson, we thank you for participating with us today. We look forward to seeing you back with us in the near future. So stay safe out there and keep playing, everybody.